Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Snyder, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker as well as a wellness coach and actually a running coach too. I wear a lot of different hats, and I'm really excited to chat with you about stress and thinking about it from different perspectives. I am constantly talking about stress in my day-to-day life in these presentations and also managing it. And so I think it's a very common challenge that we all have. And I'm excited that both HPHC and Tufts Health Plan put this together so we could learn how to better manage it and actually use it for information rather than just negative. So one of the things that I just always do before I start these presentations is I offer a meditation. Meditations are, when I first say the word meditation, generally I get a lot of different feedback that meditation seems scary or it doesn't work or it's a waste of time, la-di-da-di-da. And while I understand those perspectives, and I do think that sometimes the way we're taught about mindfulness and meditation can feel like it's not helping us, the trickle down effect of the quiet and the opportunity to tune into yourself is extremely beneficial. No matter what, well, I guess that's a blanket statement, but I think it's very, very difficult to live a life without stress. And honestly, not all stress is bad. Some stress is information stuff, some stress helps propel us forward. Really, what we need to be able to do is learn how to recognize stress and manage stress. However, when we are so busy and there is very little room for margin in our life, and what I mean by margin is opportunity to flex and adapt and change, it can be really difficult for something unplanned to happen. So the first thing that we have to do is kind of connect and get in touch with our body. I would love for you to take a deep breath in through your nose, exhale through your mouth, and do everything you can to make the space quiet and limit as many distractions as possibility. So like before this presentation, I put my phone out of my room. I shut out of my email. I'm trying to keep my dogs quiet, all those things. So do whatever you can in the next 3 seconds or a minute, whatever, to make your room or wherever you are a more sacred, quiet space. And then I want you to sit back, relax, and if you're comfortable, close your eyes. Try to call to mind a relaxing place, like a beach, a mountaintop, a forest, or really anywhere you can find peace. Imagine what you see, hear, smell in this oasis. Start to breathe in slowly, allowing the air to fill in your lungs. Hold your breath for a moment. And slowly release your breath. What do you hear, see, or smell? As you take another breath, feel any tension you're holding drain from your muscles. As you breathe in and out, let go of any negative thoughts. Free your mind of worry as you continue to picture your happy place. Our brains are made to have thoughts. And so if those thoughts pop up, I would love for you to simply acknowledge them and release them. That does not mean that you're doing this wrong. It's just a part of being human. Draw from the serenity of the moment. Allow the calmness of your imagined oasis to wash away your worries and drain the tensions from your muscles. Visit here whenever you like to relax and instill a sense of calmness. You can visit any areas that you find relaxing when you shut your eyes and tune into your breath. The choice is yours, but remember, this is a place for escape. Now I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose, exhale from your mouth, and come back to this moment. Welcome. So hopefully that helped ground you a little bit so you could be more in the moment. Though that is one of the skills that I will be talking about throughout this presentation. That took 2 to 3 minutes. And I want you to take a moment and check in with your body. Does it feel a little less tense? Do you feel a little less distracted? If not, that's okay. Sometimes these types of skills take practice and repetition, but it is a tool to put in your toolbox. You know, YouTube has tons of meditation. The Calm app has tons of meditation. And if you find yourself ruminating or having a difficult time managing stress, 2 to 3 minutes of a break can really help regulate you. Okay, we're going to get started talking about stress. So, as we all know, stress is a negative. I don't want to use that blanket statement because stress activates us and can be really helpful too. But having excessive amounts of stress in our day-to-day life is not good for our health. It's not good for our emotional well-being. It's not good for our relationships. Everywhere you go right now, if you look online and you Google stress, everything says stress is bad. It's like, okay, got it. Stress is bad. That doesn't necessarily help how I'm managing stress. When we experience stress, the physiological response that can happen within our body is more stress. So, for instance, if we have a project due and we start to panic about it, our breath gets more shallow. Usually our heart rate increases, cortisol is released, and we panic. It doesn't help us get the project done any faster. So being able to know your stress signals is really helpful. Well, stress can be motivating. It also needs to be managed in a way that makes us productive, not overwhelmed. So the first thing I like people to do is take a second and jot down what they think their stress signals are. Everyone is going to feel in a different way. You might get angry or irritable, lose sleep, have headaches, or stomach upset. And now once you look at them, I want you to put them in a place where you can return back to them. And the first step to making change in any situation is acknowledgement. Our brains are creatures of habit and comfort. And so sometimes we don't even realize that the thing that is impacting us is because of stress, because we've been doing it so regularly. So like rushing around could be a reaction of stress, but if someone asks you, you might just be like, oh, that's how I always live my life. Well, the reality is when we don't have margins in our life to manage stress, then we are going to be constantly in this, hate this word, but I do feel like it's appropriate, like this rat race. And so being able to acknowledge first our stress pointers or our stress symptoms is an opportunity to then start to shift the patterns. So once you notice where stress is popping up, the idea is to start to manage the components around it and harness curiosity. A lot of times we are just going in our lives so quickly from A to B, we don't pause and think and consider why we are doing what we're doing and what is the information we can gather from it. Curiosity opens different parts of our brain to more understand versus judgment, which shuts us down. So a lot of times when I start to talk to people in my private practice about stress, they become really overwhelmed and judgmental, like I should do better, I should blah, blah, blah. And I kind of have a joking saying that don't should on yourself. But the reality is that doesn't help us change or grow or adapt. So the first question I like to ask people when they are looking at their schedule and they're thinking, I can't necessarily erase stress, but I could probably manage it better. I like to ask, what is beneath that? Or what would it look like to make a change that positively impacts your life? And a lot of times people will say things like, well, I'd be calmer, I'd be less hectic, I'd be less rush. And then we ask, well, like, what's stopping you from making a change? So if you're struggling with a very hectic, stressful life, I want to ask this to you with curiosity, not judgment. What is preventing you from taking steps to living a less stressful life? This isn't something that you maybe need to think of or answer about right now, but it's important because when we understand our why, it is easier to change. So some of the common responses is I don't have enough help. I have to fit everything in my day. That's just the way life is. And the truth is at some level, yes, we do have really busy days and we are very stressed out. However, the reality is that unconsciously, a lot of times we play into these patterns that feel comfortable for us when we could pause and do it just a little bit differently. It doesn't have to be revolutionary in order to make changes. When we are stressed, we often react. And when we're reacting, we're coming from a place of our amygdala, which is responsible for our fight, flight, freeze. And they recently started to talk about fawn. And fawning is basically like doing whatever the other person asks. And when we're living in our amygdala or that reptile brain, we are less able to make decisions. We are more reactive. And when we are reactive, we don't always do and say what is the best or maybe most appropriate for the situation. Because who I am when I react is a lot more aggressive and loud and upfront than maybe someone who I am when I'm breathing. So one of the amazing things is that acknowledging when we're more stressed gives us the opportunity to utilize different tools to react and respond differently. When we start to note our warning signs, our red flags that I had you guys write down, we can put an action plan in place. And the thing is, we can't expect this to change overnight. You know, we've been doing this for many, many years, and it's very imprinted in our brain where we don't even have to think about it. But I like to create and help people create plans of how to manage when they're really stressed rather than having to have them think about it. Because when you think about your natural reaction, you're going to go to that. Creating a plan helps us not panic. And I like to equate it to creating like a plan if there's a fire. You don't wait until the fire to make the plan. You have the plan, so you know what to do and you've practiced it. So, for instance, if you feel stressed, having a list of what you can do to manage that stress so you can ground yourself and regulate yourself would be really helpful. One of the things that we just talked about is that meditation. 3 minutes. Another thing that you could do is take some deep breaths. And I know that seems very simplified when I say that, and I often have people scoff at that. But, the physiological response when we're feeling stress starts in our breath. And so our breath gets shallow, our pulse increases, our thoughts get rapid. So I want you to note right now where you're feeling the stress in your body. And then I'm going to teach you a breath exercise. It is called 5-6-7. And it is equated to a hug for your nervous system, which I just love. And the concept is to do it 3 times in order to regulate yourself. It doesn't take very long, but it could make the difference between sending that nasty email and then being stressed about it, or thinking something through and pausing. This is also a good time if someone asks you to do something, you can pause, be like, I need to think about that. Let me get back to you. Do your breath work and then answer. We live in such an immediate reaction society that people expect answers right away. And it's totally acceptable to say, hey, I need a few minutes, and then go do your breath work. So 5-7-8 is breathing in through your nose for 5, holding for 7, and exhaling for 8. Sometimes exhaling for 8 is a lot for me. And so I will shift it and do like 3 breaths in, 4 to hold, and then 6 exhaling through my mouth. It doesn't really matter 100% what you're doing in terms of breathing in and out, as long as the inhalation is shorter than the exhalation. So I'm going to go ahead and cue you guys, and I'll cue you through 2, and then you'll do the 3rd on your own. And I want you to note the level of stress right now, and then check in and note it post. So let's take a deep inhalation through your nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Or hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then let's exhale through our mouths for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And repeat, breathing in through your nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Holding for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And exhaling for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to have you go ahead and do the final one, counting yourself. And if you don't force it, if you have trouble with any of the length of it, you can change it to your need. Okay, wonderful. So I would love for you to check in now and just kind of see, is your stress level better? Is it worse? Is it the same? So that is another tool. The more tools we have, the more we can rely on in order to manage. I'm full of activities today. I feel like that's the best way to learn, is through interaction. It's different for everyone, but that's my teaching style. The next thing that I actually want us to do is it's called a circle of control. So if you can grab a piece of paper, a pen really quickly. I know that can be rare to have them available. I probably should have warned you guys, but yeah, it's more difficult to do on the computer. So I would love for you to just try to find one. And once you have it, I want you to draw a circle. The circle should be big enough that you can write inside the circle and outside of the circle. And then on the inside of the circle, I want you to write down the things that you have control over. There's no right or wrong. And then on the outside of the circle, I want you to start writing down the things that you don't have control over. And this should be a living document. And actually, ideally, you would put it somewhere that you could see it. A lot of times, one of the reasons why we're stressed is because we are trying to control the uncontrollable things in our life. So I like to equate it to the weather. Weather is on the outside of the circle. We cannot control it. But I cannot tell you how many times I've tried. I look at the weather multiple times a day. I talk about the weather. I stress about the weather. I look on different websites, like that's going to actually change the weather. And I panic. I think about all the energy I am giving to the weather that I have no control over. So if I look on the inside of the circle, I think about the things that I can control. I can control what I do in the weather. I can control how I prepare for the weather. I can control how I feel about the weather in some sense. So if I'm like, hate the rain, I don't have to go outside in the rain, or I can get a really nice rain jacket. And I can focus my energy on that is within the circle, not on the things that are outside of the circle. Focusing your energy on things outside of your circle is essentially heating your house with the windows open and it being negative temperatures out. You're stressing unnecessarily about things that you have no control over. So a lot of times on the outside of the circle, we can say other people's opinions, we can say traffic, we can say like the weather, clearly. We can say illness, death, other people's moods, things like that. Like we do not have control over it. And yet we often, when you think about it, we want control over that. We want control over how people respond and react and traffic and things like that. What we can control is our schedule, our breath, being aware of our thought patterns, working on changing our thought patterns, how we take care of ourselves, our sleep, our exercise, all the things that make us more capable and competent humans to manage stress. When we give all of our energy to things outside of the circle, we're actually increasing our stress, and it feels like we don't have control over our lives. Instead, we can build and create patterns that help us manage the things that are outside of our control and focus on controlling the controllables. No matter how much you want to be able to control traffic, you're not going to. Things happen. Traffic lights go out. People drive not always the best. People drive slow. People drive too fast. People get in accidents. That's life. And if you're cutting everything so short that you're racing, the reality is that it's always going to be a stressful experience for you. So building in these margins of saying, let's say, we're going to like give ourselves 5 minutes added on to our travel time, which is in our control, then maybe that experience is going to be a little bit less stressful. The reality is that we do have a lot of control in our day-to-day life when we think about the things that we can control and the stress that we can manage. There are things in our lives that we just can't control, weather, illness, death. And we can only manage who we ask for support during that, how we're compassionate to ourselves and curious about these experiences, and give ourselves space to be human rather than expecting perfection and never to be, honestly, human. When we have that space and compassion for ourselves, we can also offer it to other people. So what I want to encourage you to do is to put that stress circle and your control circle somewhere you can see it daily. And if you find yourself giving away energy, think about, like, is this in my hula hoop? I use hula hoop for the same as like the control circle. And if it's not in your hula hoop, come back to what is in your hula hoop. The more balanced life we live, the less stress has the ability to knock us down. And that's not like a point blank statement. Like, that's not true. There's experiences that are going to knock us down because they're sad and horrible. But, the daily stressful occurrences we can manage, like traffic, people being late, things like that. So I know we're running out of time and I have thrown a ton of information at you, but I want to start by just finish by going over what we've discussed. Meditation, breath work, pausing, asking for space are all really amazing tools that we can utilize at any point. And people may have a difficult time at first adapting when you do those things a little bit differently, but they will adapt. When we become more aware of our stress signals, we can manage them better. We cannot manage things outside of our hula hoop, and nor should we try. We have to really focus inwards on what we can manage. The reality is that stress is going to be a part of our life, and partnering with it to be curious and using it as an opportunity to grow is within your best interest. And I just have to do a little plug for this as well. The more you take care of yourself on a day-to-day basis, like you get enough sleep, you're eating enough, you're eating foods that feel good to you, and you're exercising. Doesn't have to be anything, nothing has to be insane. Just like adding little bits of walking or stretching or standing outside with the vitamin D sun. That will help you manage these challenges even better. I appreciate you all so much for coming, and I'm excited for you to think and consider stress in a different way. And I have 2 minutes for questions.